All right, we are live. Woo! Heard it through the grapevine. Um,
And yes, we made it. Our last
we
podcast
have
of the year.
made it. Uh, 2022 is right around the corner. This is the last podcast of 2021. And we are so excited to be here today because we have a topic that is so critical. But before we get into that topic, I want to say good evening to Vivi, who has now officially moved to some cold climate because this is the second time you're dressed to impress the snow god. How are you? How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I was a little tired earlier, but doing great. I'm excited to see you and Dr. Alba. It is 53 degrees in Rosarito Beach, Baja California, and we've had some rain and some winter sort of, kind of vibes, and which are nice because I never really get to wear this in Cali. So there we go. Look, I'm representing all the beautiful weather that we get in California. So we get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, good, good, good. Well, I am so excited because I am actually broadcasting live from Dr. Rodriguez's and Dr. Nunez's podcast studio. And I haven't quite learned how to use everything, but it's quite nice. And I am going to welcome to the screen Dr. Alba. Come on in.
I'm going to be short.
You're going to be short?
Yes.
You can sit on my lap if you have to.
Here we go.
No, it's cute. You don't look too bad. And like a little girl, I'll move back and look. See, we're all balanced. We're
Okay.
You
good.
ladies look amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's fun. So this is everybody who doesn't know. This is Dr. Alba Rodriguez. She is a PhD neuroscientist with a specialty in pain resolution, stress modulation, and the role of antioxidants and other neurotransmitters on disease and especially brain function as we age. So she's got an amazing background in research. How many years were you at Henry Ford?
About 12.
About 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she is working closely with us at IQMK Global to make sure that the research that we have is credible. She helps us source the things that we should feel comfortable talking about because it's backed by, a legacy of research. And so we're very delighted that she can join us tonight to talk about something that is really over the top important. I just want to say hi because Agnes, hi, and we do like our screen too. And Joe, happy holidays. Thank you for being here. Oh my goodness, everybody, welcome to the IQMK familia. But tonight is so important. And I'm going to just give a little bit of a setup as to why it's so important. I have a lot of people in my life, in my circle, that call me or text me and say, I've tested positive for coronavirus. And everyone is really scared. And I get on the news every day and I see, panic and flight cancellations and but more importantly, I'm getting calls from the schools saying, are you going to vaccinate your children? What are you doing? Aren't you afraid? And I get confused because I have around me in my life scientists and really good doctors and people who really try hard to help me understand what I need to do to stay healthy, what I need to do to keep my family healthy, and what I can and cannot say about viruses. And tonight is really about my sense and the sense of all of the people I've talked to recently that the world is so afraid to make a move, that it is not just a pandemic of viruses, but it is a pandemic of fear. And I think the most dangerous word that we're going to talk about when it comes to our health is something called sustained stress. I'm going to say it again, sustained stress. In 2008, New York Times Magazine had a cover that said the new epidemic in America that was the 95% cause of the increase in cardiovascular disease, diabetes, early death to chronic disease was stress. And it has not gotten any better since 2008. And in the past 3 years, I don't know a single person that lives daily a joyfully laughter, light-filled life. It is designed, it seems, constantly by the media to scare us. I want to open this by one thing that I spent about 2 hours researching today. And that is, for the past, at minimum of 10 years, if not longer, about half of all the flus. Do you remember just a couple of years ago, you would get the flu and you'd get a fever and your bones would hurt and you would get a cold and you'd lay in bed and you'd feel like you were going to die and it was just awful and it was the flu and you'd call the doctor and the doctor would say, there's no cure for the flu. You know, make sure you hydrate, and if you get really sick, go to the ER. Or you would get the cold, that horrible thing, or your kids would be coughing like whooping cough at night, and you'd get them to the pediatrician, and the doctor would say, Mom, it's just a cold. We don't have a way to prevent the colds except by washing your hands and keeping your kids away from those with active symptoms, and we don't have a treatment except to treat the symptomology. What I want to say is scientifically accurate, and that is half of all those things I described are due to active coronaviruses. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of types of coronaviruses. 50% of all common cold is caused by coronavirus. In 2019, a horrible coronavirus was manipulated and released on the world, killing millions. It was a tragedy, and it was something to be afraid of. And that was called COVID, which means coronavirus disease. Nothing insidious. There's hundreds of those right now. Coronavirus disease, and it got a dash and a 19, because the way researchers do it is they put the year behind the coronavirus. So there's a COVID-12, there's a COVID-15. They're out there. COVID-19 was deadly. Many viruses are deadly. But what we need to stress right now is the coronavirus is a naturally occurring virus that mutates every year. And the year later, we pick up pieces and put it in our flu shot and hope that it works for ourselves and our children. The common cold, I think they've separated this out, at least I hope, can very much be due to the coronavirus. Now, here's my biggest concern, and this is what started my avalanche of research today. I drove all the way to Tampa to do more research with Dr. Alba. I read, I think it was the CDC, that says there may be upwards of 40 million people right now in the United States infected with a coronavirus. And that upwards of 40% of those people may have a variant of COVID-19 called Omicron. Is that what it's called? Omicron. All right. So what is the rest? You know, it's a coronavirus. I'm not downplaying this. I'm not downplaying this at all. I'm vaccinated. I have 4 friends right now that were vaccinated and boosted with coronavirus, with COVID. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm saying we need more. And the first thing we need is to stop the stress response, stop the panic, and stop the fear, because it's hurting us. It's making our immune systems weaker, and it's making our children anxious too. So on that note, I'm going to go to the science, because that's op-ed. That's opinion editorial based on science, but it's important because there are things we can do. But the very first thing we need to do is understand the stress response. So I'm going to shift over a little bit, and I'm going to ask Dr. Alba to begin to talk to us a little of your understanding. This is so cool. I walked into their studio here tonight, and her husband, Dr. Nunez, has a quote from a somatic neuroscientist, right?
Actually, he was a philosopher, but he's the developer of somatics.
Okay.
His,
okay.
had a very unique perspective on stress and what's happening in your brain affects your body.
So I'm going to just read this really quickly and then leave the translation to you. And then I think we have some graphics and people can ask questions. There's a lot of people on tonight, so I want to get over there and respond to those questions while you're here. But this is the quote, and it's pretty fancy words, but I do have a PhD too in English, so I think I can get through. It says, what the neurophysiological research of the past several decades tells us is that the kind of thoughts we think determines the quality and effectiveness of our lives. Because thinking is an action of the entire body that mobilizes the entire sensory motor system, the nature of our thinking activity automatically determines the nature of our bodily activity. If we turn the same anxious thoughts over in our minds day after day, then it is certain that we are tensing and activating certain contractions in our body day after day. And it is just as certain that these afflicted parts of our bodies will, through this daily abuse, become fatigued and damaged. Our brains, our hearts. I mean, this is powerful. When we think the same thoughts of revenge over and over again, we are activating the muscles and glands of our bodies over and over again. When we repeat the same thought of disappointment over and over again, we are repeatedly stamping its motor power into the tissues of our body until they sag in forlornness. When we repeatedly think thoughts or memories of hurt, despair, anger, or fear, we are physically injuring ourselves. We are engaging in self-destruction. Yes, we are engaging in self-destruction right now. So, Dr. Alba, some science, some perspective, some knowledge, please.
Sure. So I was working at Henry Ford Health System, like we said, for about 12, going on 13 years. And my background is in neuroscience and psychology. So a lot of this I understood already on one level, but then I got to work with Dr. Nunez, and kind of my understanding of this really expanded in a way, as far as how this, not just in the science, abstract kind of science, but how does that abstract science manifest itself in our everyday lives. And I got to work with thousands of people. We actually did research studies, including randomized controlled clinical trials for chronic pain, all kinds of back pain and all kinds of chronic pain, but also stress-related conditions. And what we found is what Tony was saying, this stress that we all experience, and some of us experience more than others, affects us in so many different ways. And I'll show you that. Vivi, could you bring up that stress, fight or flight stress slide? Do you have that? The stress response?
Mm-hmm. She has it.
There's a lot of research that shows that, okay, your body is built and designed to be able to handle stress, but you're designed to handle stress in the instant that you need it, and then to go back to neutral, to go back to being relaxed. But what do we know in our lives, and especially in the last couple of years, is that we spend a lot of time in that stress response instead of like the animals, right? If you see a zebra, there's an excellent book by a neuroscientist that I've actually got to see at a conference, speak in person, Dr. Robert Sapolsky. He wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And this is very interesting. We are the only animals, except for one, that gets all of these heart disease and diabetes and all of these types of chronic illnesses. And all of those chronic illnesses, what they have in common is they're stress related. And I'll tell you a little bit how that works. But as a background, what this Robert Sapolsky wrote this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it's very interesting because he said, look, when a zebra is out there, on the plains, grazing, peaceful, just, doing what zebras do, he's at peace, right? He's chill, he's relaxed. But what happens when a lion approaches. Okay, the zebra does not freak out. The zebra continues grazing, and he watches that lion out of the corner of his eye. Now, as soon as that lion gets close enough that that lion could be a danger to him, he takes off running, right? Stress response kicks in, that fight or flight. What do we know about fight or flight? Your muscles are activated. Your blood flow goes to your limbs because you got to run or you got to fight, you got to defend yourself, one or the other, right? So when all that blood goes to the limbs, what happens to our digestive system? That's put on hold. We've got to focus on getting out of this danger. That's put on hold, right? Our heart starts to beat faster and harder. Our stomach, so we said the digestive enzymes, shut down or at least become less active. The muscles are becoming more tense. The blood vessels, blood pressure increases because those blood vessels dilate so you can run, right? So you can activate yourself. Saliva flow decreases because that's part of the digestive system. So any of you ever been on stage and got stage fright? And what happens? Your mouth dries up. Yeah, I usually keep a little glass of water near me just in case. But we've all experienced that. It's funny. People are more afraid. Like the number one fear used to be, I don't know if it still is, it's probably coronavirus now, but it used to be the number one fear was speaking in front of people.
Public, yeah.
Right? And the number two fear was dying. So people were more afraid to be giving you the eulogy than they were to be in the coffin. And this is an old joke by, I think this was, I don't remember who said that. Seinfeld. It's an old joke by Seinfeld. Credit where credit is due, right? So all of these things are happening when you experience this fight or flight response. So what's that zebra do? He runs and he runs and he runs. And as soon as he's far enough away that he knows that that lion can't get him, what does he do?
Grazes.
He goes back. He goes back to neutral. He gets out of fight or flight, out of that stress response, and he goes back to neutral, goes back to grazing. Now, what do? We're like, oh no, there was a lion. Oh no, what if he's got friends? What if they're hiding behind that boulder over there? What if they're going to get me? What if he brings, 20 others? And we
what if there's variations of that lion?
What if there's other lions that are kind of like the lion, but a little bit different, right? And so we spend our time stressing over things that are in our minds and are in our imaginations. There's a wonderful quote attributed to Mark Twain that says, I have suffered a great many terrible things in my life, and some of them have actually happened. So what's that mean? Most of the time we're suffering, we're stressing, we're activating our fight or flight response for things that aren't even happening. Right? And we stay on, we keep that stress response on and on and on. So what happens when your heart is beating faster and harder and you keep that on all the time? You don't go back to neutral, right? Can you see where that chronic stress could lead to heart issues? Can you see where your blood vessels, your blood pressure increases as these blood vessels dilate, right? Can you see how that could lead to high blood pressure, chronic high blood pressure, right? So all of these things have effects on our body. And whether it's a real stressor, like there's a lion chasing us, like the zebra, or if it's an imagined stressor, the body reacts the same way. So when you spend your time, like right now, watching the news and thinking, oh my God, what if it gets me? What if it gets me? What if it gets me? What are you doing? You are activating that stress response. I read recently that they conducted a survey and they asked people, if you get this virus, what are your chances of dying? And some people thought it was 40%. Okay, it's less than 1%. Less than 1%. They thought it was 40%. And that's less than 1%. You can go right on the CDC website and look at that.
Yeah.
That is not.
While you're saying that, though, I do want to, I'm not in the screen, but I'll jump in for a second. I was very stressed. I was very stressed by the school district sending out a survey and then following it because I said, no, we're not interested in, enhancing the ribonucleic acid of a 6-year-old girl with a vaccine right now, because we're just really not sure what that means. Now, I've said it before, I'm vaccinated. Many of my friends aren't. Many of my friends are. I vaccinate every year against the flu. I sometimes get it. I sometimes don't. But it's just my habit from being 35 years at hospitals and in healthcare. I don't ever believe in vaccinating with a non-shedded virus of a child, right? And that's my own personal view, but it also happens to be my pediatrician's view. My pediatrician said, look, let's just give them the flu shot because there's no herd immunity right now. And whatever coronavirus is in this year's flu shot, they'll be protected from. And hopefully next year we'll have more to put in a flu. He's a flu shot guy, right? And I asked, well, why aren't you recommending the Merck or this? And he said, because I don't understand it. He's not old. He's only 40. He said, I've done all the research and I don't understand the fact that we're asking to vaccinate children on something that we don't know how the vaccine works, and we know for sure that it doesn't kill our kids. And so on that note, I was so upset that I had to do research, because all of a sudden the school is saying maybe they can't come back and they have to be homeschooled. And all my friends that are boosted and they're adults, they're getting it. Their kids aren't. I mean, I'm confused. So I went to my personal neuroscientist who sends me to the CDC and to WHO, data-driven organizations. I'm hoping that continues to stay objective and the same. And this is the data. Can you pull the data up for the chance of death from COVID for children? And this just made me okay. And I could breathe again. Like I could breathe, because I had this pressure on my chest, worried about these children that I'm helping to raise. I just want to make sure they're safe in everything. I mean, I make them wear helmets when they don't want to, when they go out on bike rides. I make them sit in their little chairs and wear, their belts in the car. And so when I went to, I'm pretty sure this is WHO, where, here it comes. But this is so crazy. So let's look at the 5 to 14-year-olds, which is the group that they want us to vaccinate at this point. The number one cause of death per 100,000 kids is cancer. And then we do vehicle accidents. I don't know how to protect my kids from cancer except through good food and lots of antioxidants and their muscarine extract every day. Vehicle accidents, oh my God, there's not a time I get in the car that I'm like not aware that I'm responsible for lives. Suicide is like, look at the difference between suicide and COVID. If you're worried about your 5 to 14-year-old, get the anxiety out of their life, right? Really work hard at getting them to be more happy, satisfied, functional children. Cardiovascular disease, rare, but 0.6. Drowning, 0.5. Flu pneumonia, the regular kind of influenza, N1H1, I can't remember the numbers, that get in the chest is 0.3. And what's tied for COVID is, suffocation in the trunk with a plastic bag, and they described it. So this data for the other deaths, 2018, the other is for right now, April 10th, 2021. And when I looked at the actual verifiable data, I said to myself, this is crazy, guys. This is crazy that you're causing mothers to lose sleep, that you're making it seem like if you send your children to school without, uber protection and vaccines, that they have a really good chance of contracting COVID and dying. But yet you put them in school buses every single morning, or you drive them to school. So I'm not, once again, in any way degrading the urgency of keeping your kids' immune system strong, keeping them away from kids who are suffering from colds and flus and things that we know are just going to knock them off their path for a couple of days. But don't stress. Don't make yourself lose sleep over some insidious COVID that's going to take them, because even in the time that we needed to be super vigilant when this manipulated COVID was out there killing millions of elderly and other comorbidities, we still didn't have much to worry about. As a matter of fact, 227 children tragically died out of the 1.8 million children that were diagnosed in our country with COVID-19. It's a lot of kids that had COVID-19. And a very small percentage that actually passed away that were already had comorbidities as young children. So Once again, please don't think that I'm saying COVID isn't real. Viruses are real. They took half of my elders in my family died of viral infections that turned into pneumonia. It's very devastating. But let's stop the fear. Let's work in the facts. Let's do the things that it takes to make us healthier so that we can be joyful. So that when our friend does come down with a COVID virus, we can say, you're going to get through this. I'm dropping you off some chicken soup, some muscadine extract, some green tea. Do well by yourself. Take care of yourself and not be afraid like it was the bubonic plague. You know, people think I'm some kind of superhero because I'm willing to drop things off when they have COVID, right? So I just want to, I got on my soapbox, but this kept me up for like 2 or 3 nights.
And this is specifically directly related to what we were just talking about the stress response. So what happens if you're one of those people that watches the news 24/7 and you're freaked out 24/7, stressed about what's on the news, right? Pandemic, this, that, the other. Well, guess what else that fight or flight response does? It affects the cortisol systems in your body. And what happens is that it suppresses your immune system. That constant fear, that constant stress actually suppresses your immune system. So you're making yourself more vulnerable to viruses, including COVID, when you are stressed, when you can't sleep, when you don't sleep. That also decreases your resistance to viruses and other illnesses, right? So not only does that chronic stress create, or worsen or contribute to heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, all of these issues because of, oxidative stress and all kinds of things, but it's also decreasing your immune system. So how do you, in the midst of all the panic, in the midst of all that's going on out there, how do you improve your immune health, right? What can you do? Is it, oh no, we're doomed, now we can never do anything because we're stressed and we're panicked? No, the interesting thing about stress is it's not what's out there. What's out there about the stressors. So we're going to divide that. Stressors versus the stress response, the stress reaction. So it's not the stressors in your life, it's how you respond to them. So you can learn to intervene at that level of that stress response to lower your own internal sense of stress, right? And then that helps to lower all of these issues that are going on. Some of the things that we know are related to chronic stress or chronic pain throughout your body. We actually did studies with thousands of people, over 2,400 people through this health system. And we found that people, just by learning what to do, they can reduce their own chronic pain. We found that 80% of chronic pain conditions were improved and about 40% were completely resolved. But not only chronic pain, other stress-related issues like high blood pressure, like diabetes, like cancer, all of those things also exhibited improvements. People slept better. People were less depressed. So how many of you would like to sleep better, be less depressed? You have to learn how to intervene at that level of that stress response. So first of all, don't watch the news 24/7 and don't stress yourself out. Like
that's true. That's true. It's, it's what we consume, right? It's like not just, our diet, but our digital media diet, what's in it, like when we are, most of us use social media, and, we follow a lot of people, like, thinking about that. What are you really, consuming? Are you consuming toxic social media? I've been so much aware of that, now, and I've been actually practicing, mindfulness around that and finding strategic ways to, do a little social media detox. But as I was hearing you talk, Dr. Alba, I was thinking about, when you were talking about the stress response with the lion and everything, that, some of us too, and I don't know if this is, a biologically inherited thing or if it's just our bodies just respond to a certain thing. But after we go through a big fight or flight, event, that turns into post-traumatic issues, right? Because they kind of stay there. And so I'm just really curious about, can we do the same things to relieve our nervous system from these, flashbacks of, or these thoughts, right, that we keep having after we go through a traumatic event, that causes that response? Can you talk a little bit about that, or is there an actual correlation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what's happening. It's stamping in. When Tanya was reading that quote, when you're repeatedly thinking about those stressful events, you're stamping them in, and that's affecting not only what you think, but it's affecting your entire body. So what we need to learn is how to, again, get out of that stress response, right? Intervene at that level so that we're not continuously, because every time you think about that stressful event in the past, you are reliving it. You are creating those same body sensations that were there during that stressful event, right? So we need to learn to disconnect from that. And there are many ways to do that. Vivi, I'm sure you're familiar with some of these from your work. There's many ways to do that. And that's one of the things we want to teach people is what can they do to intervene at that level, at that stress response, so it's not being stamped in, so they're not constantly reliving.
And that's what I think we need to spend some of the time that we have left. But before we do that, one of the things I wanted to bring up is this cortisol. Cortisol contributes to a rise in glucose. Mm-hmm. So if you're diabetic, you'll be uncontrolled in this pandemic. And that's what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Unless you counter effect it with a really strict diet or lots of muscadine like I did, it's really going to mess up your diabetes. Cortisol makes your hair fall out. As women, as men, you lose your hair. Cortisol makes you fat because it slows down your metabolism because it's scared that there's not going to be more food. Cortisol keeps you awake at night because you've got to look out for danger. These are all things, my friends, that are precursors to serious, often fatal diseases.
Cortisol suppresses your immune response.
Yeah, it takes away your sex drive. It destroys your fertility. This is like the truth. This is the science truth. And it seems to me there are crazy, what I call those people with the theories. They're like, oh man, they're just trying to make us all infertile, or they're trying to make us all. But in effect, it's what's happening. It's just we don't have the huge baby boom that we should have from people staying home, right? My favorite here is on WebMD. They talk about stress, and this is just from a few years ago, but they said you get agitated, moody, you feel overwhelmed, and you don't want to do anything ultimately. You can't relax, you can't quiet your mind, you feel bad about yourself, your low self-esteem just raises up and up and up. And you avoid others. I mean, this is horrible. You get headaches, diarrhea, constipation, aches and pains that you would not believe, worsening arthritis, chest pain and rapid arrhythmias and heartbeats, frequent colds, flus, and other infections, loss of sexual desire and or ability, nervous ringing in the ear. I have so many people that say I tinnitus or whatever it's called. It's all from stress. Dry mouth and then grinding your teeth. Worrying, forgetfulness. This is all poor judgment. This is really true. People fight about whether there's been an uptake in suicide. There's been an uptake in teenage and child suicide. Maybe not so much adult, but what there has been extreme problems with is the increased use of alcohol, drugs, and cigarette smoking and vaping. These are all nervous behaviors, fidgeting, nail biting, pacing. These are all exacerbated by sustained stress and pandemic chaos, what we're living in. So the solution, besides, drinking myself to sleep every night or getting a vape filled with, something that knocks me out, those are not healthy behaviors. Eating too much, which I tend to do when I'm stressed, also not a healthy behavior, especially with diabetes. And I'm trying to keep that reverse. Thank you, Must Natural. But all of these things have to be dealt with. And I've learned to stop and breathe. Just nothing is going to be that bad. I just have to breathe. So let's talk about mindfulness. Vivi, that's your world. Let's talk about the science of letting the stress go. What can we do tonight?
Well,
Besides have a great husband
I'll
was
share a couple tips, just a couple tips that I've tried to implement it this last few months. And, I've really been focusing on, just trying to live holistically. And my amazing colleagues over at one of the organizations that I collaborate with Kid Grid, they have this amazing tool called the Holistic Wellness Wheel. And it just kind of, really kind of sections off different areas of your life. And that's where I really kind of had that introspection and reflection of, how I was really consuming social media. And if you really, maybe this is a time for us to just, or for all of us that are on here, to just really stop and think, how do you begin your day? Is your phone next to you? Is the first thing that you do grab your phone? Because the first thing that you do, if that's the first thing, your dopamine goes up real quick and it sets the mood for the rest of your day. And then now you're going to try to do that. So what happens? You try to reach that phone. And we know that many of us, use social media because we work and we do all these different things. But this is where the mindfulness comes in, right? The introspective is what we choose to see. Is it the news, right? Do you go on that Apple News right off the bat? Do you get those, the numbers and the bad news? So it's really important to set also those examples for, for us parents. So one of the things, that I have been trying to do is charge my phone out of the bedroom, put it in a place where it's not next to me, where I'm not getting distracted, my sleep is not getting distracted by, beeps or any of these, app things. I also disable my apps at 10 p.m. and they don't turn back on until 7 a.m. So the only thing that is on for me is my text message, and that's it. So, and my calls, but everything else, is there to the next thing, to take care of. After I try to implement some type of wellness activities in the morning, maybe go out and, do some stretching, some movement, drink that hot cup of tea, look at the sunrise, do some movement activities. So these are a couple of things that, you can implement tonight. Don't charge your phone next to you if you don't really need to, and set these sort of, positive choices with our kids. And of course, adopt a healthy diet, movement diet, laughter diet, gratefulness diet. Be mindful, be present. And I think many of us have, touched a little bit on this in our previous podcast, but there's so many ways that we can be present in the moment, because what happens is when we don't, we do miss out. We do miss out, right? We do miss out with perhaps our children, with ourselves. And it's important to be fully present, to really experience that control in our nervous system, right? To be, for example, I'm a parent, right? You guys know I have a 15-month-old and it's going into toddlerhood, and something, happens and it triggers, whether it's my fight or flight because I get scared that my child fell and she might get hurt, or she does a behavior that because of my childhood post-cultural trauma, I see as negative. And it's going to create a response for me. So if I'm controlling my nervous system, in the moment, have that introspective and really practice it, it's made a difference. It's going to make a difference in how I take care of my well-being and how my children see and perceive me and the experience that they have with me as a parent. So those are just a couple of things that I can share with you that have worked wonder, that there's a lot of research behind, and that, you can really just, take in that reflection. And we hope to share more in our annual meeting, which we might have a little bit of time to talk, but, continue to really join us, because we're here because we want really, truly wellness worldwide. That is our mission.
I know Dr. Alba's been dying to say something, but to move on to that too, I'm very honored to be raising a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and also very challenged. And one of the things that I've done during this very stressful time is comedies. You know, earlier Lynette said, let's do laughter. Oh my God, I have had so much fun with the kids just watching things and laughing with them and making television not the enemy, which I usually make it for them, but something that kind of brings those endorphins to the surface. The other thing I'm really trying to train them on, because I fall prey to negative language sometimes, maybe 30% of my life, like 1 in 3 sentences I can improve. I try to be really, cognizant of that. And I watch the kids mimic me. And I said to myself, oh my God, I've got to give them more positive words. So every day they come out and there's a white sheet on the wall and they look for the word of the day. Some days they're not exactly positive, but they're things like discipline or manifest. And the little 6-year-old's the best at these. Like, she learns how to use them really quickly. But things like enthusiasm, optimism, they love that word. Now they're saying, let's be optimistic about this. To give children and us a vocabulary that turns problems into opportunities is one of the most amazing ways to kind of transform stress into something that you can process instead of something that sits right here on your chest, and you can't breathe because of it. So what were you bringing up, my dear?
I was actually going to talk about the same thing. I saw that what Lynette wrote about laughter. When I was in college getting my psychology degree, I took a class called behavioral medicine. And it was really interesting. We read this book by, and I think it was Norman Cousins. Have you read that?
Oh, Norman Cousins is the bomb.
Cousins had...
He's a physician.
Yeah, and he had a very severe illness.
Cancer.
It was
late
cancer.
stage.
Okay.
He did die from it eventually.
But he actually treated himself through laughter, and he wrote a book about it. He would watch all these old funny movies, and just laugh and laugh and laugh, and actually extended his life by years, because they were saying, oh, you've got a few months to live, kind of thing. So that the health benefits of optimism, of gratitude, of laughter, of, I saw a speaker once on television, I forget who it was, but she says, you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. So what's that mean? We have thoughts that fly through our head. We see things on TV, but we don't have to ruminate. We don't have to let those thoughts make a nest in our hair, right? So, and how do you stop from thinking these things, right? You don't say, okay, I'm going to stop thinking about it. I'm going to stop thinking those bad thoughts. Because what happens if I tell you, stop thinking about blue monkeys? Don't think about blue monkeys. Don't think about blue monkeys. What happens? You're going to think about blue monkeys, right? Don't think about the pandemic. Don't think about this. Don't think about that. You're going to think about it. But what do? You replace those thoughts with uplifting thoughts. You think about the pink elephant instead of the blue monkey. You replace those thoughts, because if you just have a vacuum, then things fill it. So you fill your head and your mind and your heart with other kinds of thoughts, right? So
absolutely. And I don't think I've never shared this with you, but you're going to get a kick out of this, okay? When I was in junior college, I was in a laughter club, okay? We had a guy who used to work in a circus, and this was like a personal growth class that I was taking. And he went in there, and his presentation was about laughter. And we laughed the whole class. I laughed so hard, my cheeks hurt, my abs felt tighter. So we came up with this idea and said, hey, let's have like a laughing club, or like a laughter club. So we agreed. And before we would go on that class, we would meet in the quad area, and we would have this laughter thing. So now fast forward to a few years ago, I got introduced to laughter yoga. Okay. And I did this through my after school activities. Many of I work in youth development, and we were, just trying to do these things, right, with kids. So how can you put laughter in your life? Here's a few ones, okay? Host a game night with your friends. Play with your pet. Seek out funny people. Look for funny quotes on the highway, wherever you are. Go to a laughter yoga class. You can Google this up. You'll find some people. There's like a whole network throughout the States where that has groups where you can practice that. And they did this for healing with elderly. And the thing about laughing is that it's infectious. And I actually have a few activities that I've done with adults in my training programs where we have done these corny little things, but are absolutely amazing. And it just sets a powerful mood to really understand that this can shift, your mindset so much in a way that's free and in a way that is just, emotion that promotes your social health. I mean, it's laugh for no reason. Okay. They're just it. Watch for the silly signs. Go to a comedy club. Practice laughing. And the thing is that it doesn't even have to be genuine. The fact that you're pretending to laugh or say things has its benefits. So I don't think I'd share that with you, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait for the right moment. I was this close to becoming yoga laughter certified. Okay, wow. Which now is probably coming on the top of my list again.
Yeah, I went to a wellness conference where I was a speaker, and one of the sessions was that laughter session, and everyone, sat around and laughed. And again, it doesn't even have to be real to begin with, but guess what? After a couple of minutes, it turns real. But just the research shows just lifting your face into a smile.
Yeah.
Releases endorphins.
And releases endorphins, improves your mood, reverses some of those negative effects of stress.
That's why just going for a walk when you're blue, it's not just you see new, vista, but it actually, your muscles release endorphins. That's, it's the runner's high, but for me, it's more like a walker's high, but it works. And it's the same thing, any muscle. When and you're the muscle queen here, right? Your whole somatic therapy is based on tensing, releasing in kind of micro movements to retrain your body to be relaxed.
Actually, what we're doing is we're retraining your brain. We're retraining your brain to release the pain, to release the stress, so that, because it all starts here. Remember, it all starts in your thoughts. It all starts there. And when you can retrain those thoughts and retrain the brain, they learn how to retake control of your body. So you don't have to be in that reflex reaction, right? That panic stage, that stress stage, that anxiety stage. But you learn through different things, and some of them are movement. You learn through sleep, how to retrain your body to be healthy.
Self-talk.
Self-talk. Through relaxation techniques. We teach different types of ways to specifically to relax, guided relaxation, all of those types of things. And those are some of the things we're going to be teaching people
at our annual summit in just 2 weeks. If you're on this chain of lots of listeners tonight or going forward, January 13th through 15th in Orlando, www.iqmkevents.com. From Thursday through Saturday, we're going to be talking about science, success, and service, and how to change our lives by becoming courageous and creative in 2022. If you are going to register right now, there is a code IQMK100 when you're at the checkout to save $100. This 3-day meeting with a gala dinner, your meals, training, networking, a reception will be $199. It's an amazing little vacation to spark an amazing year for yourself.
And we're going to include one other thing that's great for de-stressing and improving your immune health. Music and dancing.
Right. It'll be the first time that the Big Mountain Band is all together in the U.S. to start their tour. Yeah, reggae music, very positive. Lynette is going to be doing some Latin dance classes, and we have a DJ, and we're going to talk about leadership in ourselves, leadership spiritually, leadership economically, and leadership in your own entrepreneurial business. So it's an amazing event, and we wish you all there. I bet you Mike put up the email. I'll put it up right here.
There it is.
Yes, and there's the events website and the code is IQMK100. Yes, the meeting is going to be pivotal in so many ways. We've got amazing scientists. We've got amazing coaches. If you ever really want to learn social media to grow your business and or to become an influencer, we have a gentleman, Sean Brooks, amazing. Been doing this for about 20 years now, very successful, even before any of us heard of TikTok. We are going to have a lot of fun, and we are going to fight fear, and we are going to replace it with the courage to be healthy and, dare I say, wealthy and prosperous in this coming year. So I'm hoping that that everyone can be there. I'd like to spend just our final couple of minutes asking Alba to talk about antioxidants as stress modulators. I know that you presented something very interesting at our last meeting in Houston about how antioxidants, and everyone knows that Must Natural, our premier product, our showcase product, is about antioxidants. It's about 100 and plus polyphenols that affect our body, our minds in particular, and the way we modulate our stress response. So I think that would be helpful for people to make the connection between their diet and functional stress.
Okay. So one of the things that we're talking about stress, anxiety, and fear. One of the things that is produced when we are under stress, when we are anxious, when we are fearful, is free radicals. These are some of the things that are produced in your body. Free radicals are these little molecules, and usually they have these, electrons around the atom that are circulating, and they're paired up. Well, free radicals are missing an electron, and they're greedy little guys, and they need that electron. So they run around your body, bumping into healthy, parts of you that have electrons and stealing them. And that makes those cells unstable, right? That makes those molecules unstable, and it causes this chain reaction. And when you have more of those free radicals than what your internal defenses can handle, what your internal antioxidants, and we all have internal antioxidants, right? But when you have more free radicals and they're not balanced out by the antioxidants, you get into this state called oxidative stress. And it's a state where you're out of balance, and it produces all kinds of negative effects in your body, from chronic pain to a lot of these other things we've talked to immune issues, to even DNA. It causes DNA fragmentation, which can lead to abnormal cells, which become cancerous. So we want to make sure that we have the necessary antioxidants, and especially in times of stress, especially in times of fear that we're responding to things, we want to make sure that our bodies are able to deal with them. But if we don't have enough antioxidants, how do we get those? And that's where another thing that we talk about is where our food comes into play. Because, we are designed to eat food, and that food is designed to heal us and provide for us the ingredients that we need to address all these issues. But what do we have? We have terrible diets, right? Many of us do. We eat stuff that's not really food. It's kind of been processed so much that who knows what it is, right?
Or even our fruits and vegetables, for the most part, even the organic ones, are not grown in the best soil, are not grown in the way food was ever supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. So we're deficient in our nutrients, and then we're overstressed, which is creating all this oxidative stress. So sometimes we need a little extra something, right? We need a little bit of extra nutrition. And that's where antioxidants come in. And you can find these antioxidants in, vegetables and fruits, all kinds of vegetables and fruits. But some really powerful ones happen to be in berries. You've probably heard blueberries, cranberries, pomegranates, all these different types of fruits have antioxidants. But if you look on the scale, one of the highest of those is the muscadine grape. It has a lot of antioxidants. So
even more than regular grapes. I mean, like 8 times more.
Yeah, like really high levels, like 890 something compared to 200, 400 that other fruits have. So that's a real good way to do that. If you can't find organic fruits and vegetables enough, and you would have to eat a lot to really, in these times of stress, to surpass that. Sometimes it's a good idea to take a supplement. You know, Tanya would probably recommend Must Natural, muscadine, seeds and grapes, right, Tanya? Because it just
it's an insurance. It's like a security blanket. You know, I did fight cancer years ago without Must Natural and without muscadine, but I used antioxidants. Everything from wheatgrass to eating quarts and quarts of blueberries to, you know, really antioxidants in carrots. I really believe that my advanced cancer, the cells of my body really took over healthy. You know, they said, hey, the bad guys got to get out of here and make room for this awful carrot juice that she keeps drinking. But it worked, and it wasn't delicious, but now I love it. Give me a carrot milk, because it tastes really good with carrot almond milk. It's like chocolate milk to me because it saved my life, in my opinion. My diet saved my life. Yes, I shut down all my hormones. I didn't do chemo, but I shut down my hormones because hormones can be nasty little harbingers of growth for cells. But, you know, I combined allopathic traditional medicine with what I call primarily functional nutrition and faith in God. And those are things that to this day are the only things that get me through the darkest times. And I'm hoping that because I've had dark times, I can help others keep light in their lives. And diet is one of the ways that if I let my diet fall off, which I kind of did, I was really sick. I got food poisoning. Bring on any virus compared to food poisoning. Let me tell you, it was like knives being stuck in my belly for 24 hours straight. I even like ignored the children. They were sick too. I'm like, yeah, I'll deal with you guys when I feel better. But the truth of the matter is, if the body's sick, if the body is lacking in nutrition, when I came off of that 4 days, I had inflammation like I haven't had in a year of being on Must Natural. My body hurt again for the first time, and I got scared. I got really scared. And all I had to do was kind of increase antioxidants, go back to my healthy diet, going back to things like blueberries and yogurt and staying on the high level. I mean, I took 8 to 12 capsules. I had to. And it took me a full 4 to 5 days to lose the pain. It was great, though, because I understood that diet is the most important thing for my head to be in the right place. And just think that's important to share.
And we take that, you know, multi-pronged approach. We look at diet, you know, we look at movement, we look at sleep, we look at stress. So it's not just one thing. It's all of these factors in your life, and you want to address all of them to really get good benefits. So those are some of the things we're going to be teaching, and we're going to be training anybody who's interested in doing that. We're going to be training you. And this is some of the things that we've used in, you know, these clinical research trials, and we know work. So it's not just, oh, well, yeah, whatever, you know, this is stuff that's been tested in randomized controlled trials. And we look at the research, and we go by research, and, you know, those are the types of things that we're teaching.
Yeah. And you learn so much, and we're almost out of time. I always let Vivi take us out because her energy is just, it modulates my stress, Vivi. It modulates my stress. I can hardly wait for you to arrive in Florida to help modulate my stress around this summit. But Alba's doing a good job. I mean, that's the other thing. When you have lots of fear, when you're in isolation, when your body starts saying, oh, it's starting to hurt, I wonder why. It's fear, it's anxiety, it's nervousness. Reach out to someone that loves you. Okay, not someone you love, because sometimes the people you love aren't necessarily the best for your health, but someone who loves you, and they will care. And I say that publicly. I know you love me, and that's the best thing for my health. Vivi, I know you love me, and that's the best thing for me. So it's a little bit selfish, but when that anxiety creeps in and grabs you by the neck or puts weight on your chest, there are people that are willing to raise you up. And what I found in my little IQMK global world is people really trying to help each other, whether it's through getting them to take Must Natural and modulate their stress and keep things active and funny and alive, or whether it's really trying to help each other through divorces and bad things and illnesses. that's what we do, because this is a community. So thank you for being a part of this community. I hope we stressed enough that we want you to have a courageous, creative, loving new year. We want you to start it out January 13th through 15th with us in Orlando. And Vivi, take us out.
Well, thank you, ladies. This was amazing. We covered so much and we shared so much. So thank you to everyone that was live with us. And please share this podcast. We know you want to help others. And let's just remember, that to heal, it really has to be that mind, body, and spirit, right? That holistic way of really combating what we're going through. So we're here with you. We want to help you, and we wish you a great rest of the year. And we'll see you in 2022 and in Orlando. Have a good night, everyone.